A hidden door just appeared. What you do next will change everything. Something has shifted, and deep down, you can feel it. You may not have the words for it, but there is a quiet stirring in your spirit, a sense that what once felt closed has begun to open. This is not noise. This is not fear. This is that gentle but unmistakable moment when Jesus is trying to get your attention. A hidden door has appeared, and it did not arrive with thunder or spectacle. It appeared softly, deliberately, right in front of people who are willing to see. I want to speak to you directly because this message is not accidental. You did not click on this by chance. There are seasons when God does not shout to the crowds but whispers to the watchful. There are moments when he does not move publicly but privately, inviting those who are listening to step closer. And when a hidden door appears, it is never about curiosity. It is always about readiness. Throughout your life, there have been times when you felt delayed, overlooked, or quietly held back, while others seemed to move forward. What if that delay was protection? What if what felt like waiting was actually preparation? Some doors are not visible to everyone because not everyone is meant to walk through them. And some doors do not open outward, they open inward, calling you deeper into trust, obedience, and surrender. Right now, many people are searching for signs in the world, but missing the invitation standing right in front of them. Jesus does not force doors open, and he does not drag people through them. He waits. He knocks. He watches to see who will respond when the moment arrives. And the truth is, doors like this do not stay open forever. As we begin, I want you to slow down. Set aside distraction. Let your heart become still. Because if a hidden door has appeared in your life, this is not the time to hesitate. This is the time to listen, to discern, and to be honest with yourself. What you do next matters more than you realize. Part 1. Hidden doors have always existed. Let me tell you something important right from the beginning. What you are sensing right now is not new, and it is not strange. Hidden doors have always existed in the story of God. From the very beginning, Jesus has worked through moments that were invisible to the crowds, but life-changing for those who were watching. We often imagine God moving in loud, public ways, but when you read Scripture closely, you begin to realize that the most important shifts almost always happen quietly. Think about it. When the world was filled with violence and corruption, there was no global announcement. There was a man named Noah who heard a word that others ignored. A door appeared for him long before the rain ever fell. To everyone else, life looked normal. But that hidden door became the difference between preservation and destruction. God did not open it at the last second. He opened it early, while there was still time to prepare, to build, to trust, and to obey. The same pattern appears again and again. When Israel was trapped in Egypt, the door did not look like an escape route at first. It looked like obedience in small things, strange instructions, and faith that did not yet make sense. When the moment came, a way opened where there was no way, but only for those who had listened before the crisis arrived. The door was already there. Most people just could not see it yet. Hidden doors are not about geography. They are about timing. They appear when heaven is ready, not when humans feel comfortable. And that is why so many people miss them. We want clarity before obedience, certainty before trust, and proof before faith. But Jesus has never worked that way. He reveals just enough for the next step, and then he watches to see who will move. Even in the life of Jesus himself, hidden doors were everywhere. Before his public ministry, there were years of silence. Before the miracles, there was obedience. Before the crowds, there was surrender. And when the moment came for him to fulfill his purpose, it did not begin on a throne, but at a river, in humility, where only a few recognized what was happening. Heaven opened quietly, but everything changed. This matters because many believers today think they are waiting for a dramatic sign, when in reality God has already placed the door right in front of them. It might look like a small decision, a quiet conviction, or a nudge that keeps returning to your heart. It might feel inconvenient, uncomfortable, or even risky. But hidden doors rarely feel impressive at first. They feel personal. There are seasons when God allows things to close so that you will recognize what is opening. Loss, delay, silence, and frustration often clear the noise so that you can finally see what was there all along. What you thought was rejection may have been redirection. What you thought was stagnation may have been positioning. And what you thought was nothing happening may have been the moment heaven was preparing something just for you. Hidden doors also reveal something about God's character. He is not careless with access. He does not open everything to everyone at the same time. Not because he is cruel, but because timing protects purpose. If certain doors open too early, they would destroy us instead of bless us. That is why obedience always comes before access. Faith always comes before clarity. Trust always comes before understanding. Right now, I want you to consider something honestly. Have you been praying for a breakthrough while ignoring a door that already appeared? Have you been asking Jesus to change your circumstances while he has been asking you to change your posture? Many people stand in front of hidden doors and call them obstacles because they do not look like what they expected. But God rarely uses our expectations. He uses our willingness. Hidden doors have always existed because God has always been guiding, protecting, and preparing his people ahead of time. The question has never been whether the door is real. The question has always been whether we are awake enough to recognize it when it appears. And that leads us to the harder truth, the one we must face next. If hidden doors are real and active, then we must ask why so many people never see them at all. Part 2. Why most people never see the door. This is where things become uncomfortable, but honesty is necessary. Most people never see the hidden door not because God failed to show it, but because they were looking in the wrong direction. Spiritual blindness is rarely sudden. It is gradual. It forms quietly, through distraction, familiarity, and comfort. We live in a time when information is everywhere, but discernment is rare. People are constantly consuming content, opinions, and noise, yet their spirits are exhausted. When your soul is overloaded, it becomes difficult to hear the gentle prompting of Jesus. Hidden doors do not compete for attention. They wait for stillness, and stillness has become unfamiliar to many believers. Another reason people miss the door is because they are emotionally invested in outcomes God never promised. When we become attached to a specific version of how life should unfold, we unknowingly close ourselves off to how God actually wants to move. We pray, but with conditions. We listen, but only for answers that confirm what we already decided. And when the door appears in a form we did not expect, we dismiss it. Fear also plays a powerful role. Some people see the door, but they pretend they did not, because stepping through it would require change. It would require letting go of control, reputation, security, or relationships. Jesus never hides the cost of following him, but many prefer safety over obedience. The door feels too narrow, too demanding, too disruptive to the life they have built. There is also the danger of spiritual familiarity. When you have known about God for a long time, it is easy to mistake knowledge for intimacy. You recognize the language, the verses, the rhythms, but you stop expecting God to speak personally. Hidden doors are often missed by people who assume they already know how God works. But Jesus often does a new thing in a familiar place, and only the humble notice. Distraction is another silent thief. Not sinful distraction necessarily, but constant movement, endless activity, and emotional noise. Many believers are busy doing good things while missing God's invitation to something deeper. They are working for him but not listening to him, and when the door appears they are too occupied to pause. Pride can also blind us, even in subtle ways. Sometimes we want God to move in ways that affirm our strength rather than reveal our dependence. But hidden doors require humility. They require admitting that we do not see the full picture, that we need guidance, that we cannot control the outcome. For some, that surrender feels more frightening than staying stuck. And then there is timing. God's timing often conflicts with ours. When the door appears, it may not be convenient. You may be tired. You may feel unready. You may be in the middle of something else. But the truth is, doors connected to destiny rarely open when life feels settled. They open when faith is required. What breaks my heart is that many people stand inches away from divine transition without realizing it. They keep praying for clarity while ignoring conviction. They keep asking for signs while resisting obedience. And slowly, quietly, the door closes, not because God withdrew it, but because the moment passed. If you are listening to this and feeling a quiet conviction, that is not condemnation, that is mercy. Jesus does not reveal these truths to shame you, but to awaken you. Seeing the door begins with honesty. It begins when we admit where we have been distracted, fearful, or resistant. And the moment you begin to see clearly is often the moment you realize the door has been there longer than you thought. Part 3. The door appears before the storm. There is a pattern in the way Jesus moves that many people overlook until it is too late. God does not usually wait for chaos to begin before he acts. He moves before the storm, not during it. The hidden door almost always appears while things still look relatively normal on the surface. That is why discernment matters more than panic. By the time fear spreads, the door is often already behind those who recognize the moment. If you look carefully through Scripture, you will see this pattern again and again. God warns before he shakes. He invites before he separates. He prepares before he permits disruption. The door is never a reaction. It is a provision, and provision requires awareness. Before the floodwaters ever rose, Noah was already building. While others were eating, drinking, and continuing life as usual, a door of safety was quietly being prepared. The storm did not reveal the door. The storm only revealed who had entered it. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Many are waiting for the storm to convince them, but storms are not meant to guide you. They are meant to expose. The same was true before the destruction of cities, before the collapse of kingdoms, before major transitions in God's plan. There was always a moment when obedience mattered more than understanding, a moment when listening mattered more than logic. Those who recognized the door early did not do so because they were smarter, but because they were attentive. One of the most dangerous assumptions believers make is thinking they will recognize the moment when it arrives. They assume clarity will come with urgency, that confirmation will come with emotion, that the door will feel obvious. But often the door appears quietly, when your life feels unresolved, when your prayers seem unanswered, when your faith feels stretched. This is why Jesus repeatedly warned people to watch, not to predict dates or events, but to stay awake spiritually. When you are awake, you notice subtle shifts. You sense changes in direction. You feel convictions that cannot be ignored. Watching does not mean staring at the world. It means listening to the Spirit. The storm represents transition. It represents exposure, separation, and acceleration. When the storm arrives, everything moves faster, louder, and harder. That is not when you want to be making foundational decisions. That is why the door appears before the storm. It gives you time to choose without pressure, to move without fear, to obey without chaos. Many people assume the door is for escape, but that is only partially true. Sometimes the door is for refuge. Sometimes it is for assignment. Sometimes it is for repositioning, but it is always for alignment. God aligns his people before he moves the landscape. If you are feeling an unusual urgency in your spirit right now, not panic, but clarity, that is worth paying attention to. If you feel a growing sense that certain things no longer fit, that certain habits, relationships, or directions are becoming uncomfortable, that may not be restlessness. That may be preparation. The storm does not create urgency. The Spirit does. The storm only reveals who listened. What many fail to understand is that hidden doors often require action while everything still looks uncertain. You may not see the storm coming clearly, but you feel the shift. You may not understand the full reason, but you sense the timing. Faith is not about knowing what is coming. It is about trusting who is leading you. Jesus never forced people through doors. He invited them. He spoke. And then he waited. Some walked away sad. Some hesitated. Some obeyed immediately. The difference was not intelligence or righteousness. It was trust. Right now, if a door has appeared in your life, it is not because everything is about to collapse. It is because God loves you enough to prepare you ahead of time. He is not trying to scare you. He is trying to position you. The storm will come when it comes, but the door appears while you still have a choice. And that leads us to a truth that is difficult, but necessary to face. Not everyone is meant to walk through every door. Part 4. This door is not for everyone. This may be the hardest part to accept, but it must be said with honesty and love. Some doors are selective, not because God is unfair, but because purpose requires readiness. Jesus never hid this truth. He spoke openly about narrow paths, about few who find them, about the cost of following him. A hidden door is not a reward for perfection. It is an invitation to surrender. But surrender is not something everyone is willing to offer. Many want the outcome without the obedience. They want the blessing without the transformation. But doors connected to destiny always require something from you. This is where many hesitate. They realize that stepping through the door will change them. It will expose motives. It will disrupt comfort. It will demand trust beyond logic. And suddenly the door feels threatening instead of hopeful. Some doors require you to leave behind identities that once defined you. Others require you to walk alone for a season. Some require you to forgive when it feels impossible, to release control when it feels unsafe, or to obey when it costs you reputation or security. These are not popular invitations. That is why not everyone accepts them. Jesus never chased people who walked away from a door. He opened. That alone should make us pause. He invited, he spoke truth, and he allowed choice. Love does not force obedience, but choice carries consequence. This is not about being better than others. It is about being willing. The door is not for the strongest, the loudest, or the most visible. It is for the humble, the teachable, the responsive. Often those who step through the door are the ones who felt least qualified but most dependent on God. Some people miss the door because they are waiting for others to approve. They hesitate because they want confirmation from voices God never assigned to guide them. But hidden doors are often deeply personal. They are revealed in prayer, in quiet conviction, in moments when no one else sees what God is doing in you. There is also a painful truth that must be acknowledged. Some people recognize the door, but choose not to enter because they love their current life too much. Not because their life is sinful, but because it is comfortable. Comfort can be more dangerous than hardship. Comfort convinces you that delay is safe, that obedience can wait, that urgency is unnecessary. But doors do not remain open indefinitely. Not because God changes his mind, but because seasons move forward. Opportunity is tied to timing, and timing is not something you can negotiate. When the Israelites hesitated at the edge of promise, the door did not disappear forever, but the opportunity for that generation did. Others entered later. The door remained, but not for the same people, in the same way, at the same time. That distinction is sobering. If this door is not for everyone, the question becomes deeply personal. Is it for you? Not in a vague, emotional way, but in a practical, honest one. Are you willing to obey even if it costs you? Are you willing to trust even if you do not understand? Are you willing to move even if you feel unready? Jesus does not open doors to confuse you. He opens them to invite you into deeper alignment with him. But alignment requires agreement, and agreement requires decision. If you feel the weight of this truth, that is not condemnation, that is clarity. God speaks clearly when the moment matters. The door does not ask for perfection, it asks for willingness, and willingness is always a choice. Now that you understand the cost, the final question remains. What actually happens when someone chooses to step through the door? Part 5. What happens when you step through? There is a moment that comes after the decision, after the quiet yes, after the step that no one else applauds. It is the moment when you realize that stepping through the door did not remove all uncertainty, but it did remove confusion. You may not suddenly have every answer, but you know you are where you are supposed to be. That alone changes everything. When you step through a door Jesus opens, the first thing that shifts is not your surroundings, but your alignment. Something inside you settles. The inner resistance fades. The striving quiets. You stop forcing outcomes and begin following direction. That is how you know the door was real. Peace does not come from control. It comes from obedience. Many people imagine that stepping through the door will immediately fix everything. That is not how God works. Transformation is rarely instant, but it is always intentional. The door marks the beginning of a process, not the end of a struggle. But now the struggle has meaning. Now the resistance has purpose. Now the waiting has direction. One of the most powerful things that happens when you step through the door is separation. Not isolation, but distinction. Certain voices grow quieter. Certain distractions lose their grip. Certain paths no longer tempt you. This can feel lonely at first, but it is actually protection. God often separates before he empowers. He narrows your focus so that you can hear him more clearly. You may notice that some people no longer understand you. That does not mean you are wrong. It means you have shifted. Alignment often creates distance, not because you have become better, but because you have become different. And different can feel uncomfortable to those who prefer familiarity. Another thing that happens is clarity of purpose. You begin to recognize why past seasons felt confusing. You see how delays shaped you. You understand why certain doors stayed closed. What once felt random now feels connected. God does not waste seasons, He weaves them. Stepping through the door also brings exposure. Not public exposure, but internal honesty. You see your motives more clearly. You become more aware of what drives you. This is not condemnation. It is refinement. Jesus refines those He entrusts with more. Growth always involves light. There will be moments when you question your decision. That does not mean you made the wrong one. Obedience does not eliminate doubt. It teaches you how to walk through it. Faith is not the absence of questions. It is the commitment to keep moving, even when questions remain. Provision often follows obedience, not before it. This is where many struggle. They want reassurance before they move. But God builds faith by asking you to trust Him step by step. When you look back later, you realize that what felt risky was actually carefully guided. You may not see immediate fruit, but you will notice something deeper. You are no longer pretending. You are no longer performing. You are no longer living divided between what you believe and how you live. Integrity becomes natural when alignment is real. Stepping through the door also deepens intimacy with Jesus. Prayer becomes more honest. Worship becomes less about routine and more about relationship. You stop talking at God and begin listening for Him. This is where real authority is formed. Authority does not come from position, it comes from intimacy. And perhaps most importantly, stepping through the door changes how you see time. You become more aware of moments. You recognize when God is prompting you. You stop assuming there will always be another chance. You value obedience now, not later. This does not mean life becomes easy, but it becomes purposeful. And purpose gives strength where comfort never could. If you are standing on the other side of the door right now, feeling unsure, feeling stretched, feeling quiet but resolved, you are not alone. Many have walked this path before you, and none who truly trusted Jesus regretted stepping where He led them. The door does not promise safety from difficulty. It promises presence in the journey, and presence changes everything. Conclusion. Don't stand in front of the door forever. There is one final truth I want to leave with you, and it is spoken not to pressure you, but to honor the seriousness of the moment. Doors do not stay open forever, not because God is impatient, but because time moves forward whether we decide or not. Standing in front of a door can feel like safety. You are not inside, but you are not outside either. You tell yourself you are still considering, still praying, still waiting, but waiting can quietly become avoidance, and hesitation can slowly turn into disobedience. Jesus does not rush people, but He does call them. And when He calls, He expects a response. Not because He needs your obedience, but because you need alignment. If a hidden door has appeared in your life, it is not an accident. It is not random. It is not for entertainment or curiosity. It is an invitation. And invitations are meant to be answered. You may feel unqualified. You may feel afraid. You may feel unsure. That does not disqualify you. What disqualifies you is refusal to trust. God does not ask you to be ready. He asks you to be willing. There is a reason this message reached you when it did. There is a reason something in you resonates instead of dismisses it. That stirring is not fear. It is recognition. Your spirit knows when Jesus is speaking. Do not wait for the door to become obvious to everyone else. It was never meant to be. Do not wait for circumstances to force you. God is inviting you before pressure arrives. Do not wait until regret replaces opportunity. Take a moment. Be honest. Ask yourself what door has appeared in your life. Not what others expect you to walk through, but what Jesus has been quietly placing before you. The answer may already be there. You do not need to run. You do not need to panic, but you do need to decide. Doors are moments. Moments are gifts. And gifts are meant to be received. If Jesus is calling you forward, do not stand in front of the door forever. Step through.